Coming to you live from the caverns deep beneath Wayne Manor and totally not from my mom's basement. Welcome everyone to today's episode of the BatChat. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to today's episode of the BatChat. It's your boy Derek here of DH Cosplay, and once again pre-recorded because again I have a life. But I didn't want you guys to miss out on this. Well, we'll call it content, and I wanted to just come on here and talk with you guys. I have some very special guests. I have not one, but two guests today, and I'm actually really excited about it. Been wanting these guys to be on for a while, but couldn't get schedules to line up, and this happened to fall in a week where I was going to be out of town this weekend. And because of the time difference, as you guys will probably be made aware, these guys live across the pond from me. So because of the time difference, it was just more convenient for everyone for us to do it at a predetermined time that was not the Saturday at 2 p.m. Central Time, which, for those of you that are wondering, you can catch BatChat every Saturday afternoon, 2 p.m. Central Time. And if you're not able to catch us live here on YouTube, you can always watch it after the fact. You can also listen to it in podcast form on this is a live show, remember, even though it's pre-recorded, it's still live because I'm not going to edit that out. If you just want to listen to it as a podcast, you can check it out on Apple iTunes Podcast as well as Spotify, and be sure to give us a follow on there. I really appreciate that. And without further ado, I'm very excited for these next two guests. Now, these guys I have known for a little while now, and we have a little bit of history because of some projects I've done with them in the past, and who knows, you might be seeing them more often on here. But I'm very excited to introduce the wonderful, the amazing Thomas and Phil at Alter Ego Studios. What's going on, my friends?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having us on.
As you guys can hear by that accent, that's why we had to, they're across the pond from me, so...
Been working on it all my life.
Been working on it your life. So what time is it over there where you guys are?
It is 11 p.m.
Goodness gracious. So yeah, that's quite a time difference. So I appreciate you guys meeting with me at this time, though. I really do.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us. It's it's just one of those things where obviously on a Saturday evening, BatChat normally coincides with us sort of doing what we need to do, getting on with that sort of evening life. So it's great to finally sort out time to be on.
Absolutely.
I like the way you said a convenient time. A convenient time for you, Derek. It's night time for me.
Well, to be fair, this was Tom's idea. Yeah, I mean, it did work out for me because I just got home from work. But we'll say convenient. Convenient for 2/3 of the party, which is basically convenient for everyone. So majority rules and all that.
Yeah, exactly.
So
that's right. We do a lot of our work at night anyway, so.
Absolutely, and we will definitely get into the work you guys do. For those of you that don't know and can't see the really nice logo in the middle of the screen, Thomas and Phil are the duo that make Alter Ego Studios. I'm a big fan of Alter Ego, always have been, and I've talked about them on numerous occasions, not only here on BatChat, but I even have a few videos of their products here on YouTube, which you should definitely check out, even though, I'll be honest, they are cringe. Which, not to say that BatChat isn't cringe, but at least then it's not like... it's not intentionally cringy, because some of these videos I'm like, I don't know if this was supposed to be that bad or not, but I mean, I guess it got the point across. But I'm extremely jealous because right now I'm in the process of rearranging my room, and I thought I had a good display there, but I'm very jealous of Tom over there. He's got a pretty cool looking display there. I had to crop a lot out, but the part that you can see, the little window that you can see, on the screen there looks pretty cool. So it looks like you got some cows in there.
This is digital.
Oh, it's all digital. Okay.
No, of course it isn't. It's there. I could reach into what I need to do. Yeah. Just at the side of the workshop, got my nice display. I actually sort of built this before I started doing AE. But yeah, just makes for a nice little cowl display. The only regret that I have with this display is that I got these sort of black emblems laser cut out of Perspex and glued them on. And in hindsight, I wish I'd just sort of engraved the outline of them so you could actually see the cowls that are in there, because it's just covering all their faces. So maybe one day I'll replace the doors. But if you want to talk about jealousy, you've got your actual Batfleck armory display built, and I still haven't even got mine built. I don't even have a mannequin with a suit on, and you boys do. You can see Phil's in the background there.
I do. I'll tell you what's funny. I didn't even notice it. Well, hold on. So Batman's in the corner over there. I usually do have it on display and over in this corner over here. But currently there's nothing there except for the wonderful laser cut display pieces there. But I was taking some pictures of a suit that I made and wanted to put it on the more aesthetically pleasing mannequin than my duct tape mannequin. So I took some pictures of it on there. So my office is looking atrocious right now. I can't move in it. So I'm glad that we just have a small little window to view through. All right. Well, this is going to be a fairly concise episode of BatChat, even though it took us 6 minutes to introduce everything. But we have several discussion topics we wanted to get into. Some of them are cosplay related. Some of them are Batman related. Got all sorts of little things we're going to be kind of talking about. But before we get into the Batman topic, I think one that you sent in that you wanted to kind of ask about or kind of get into was Cowell Sizing. I figure we'll go ahead and address that because that's one of the few cosplay related topics, because a lot of it is mostly about some Batman stuff. So let's talk about Cowell Sizing. That's definitely a topic that fascinates me.
Yeah, so I mean, previously to doing this, obviously we had a little talk and sort of I thought about things that I'd want to talk about. And one of the really interesting points that I sort of want to talk about, just from a maker's perspective, is about Cowell Sizing. And basically everyone sells their cowls obviously in inches of head circumference, right? So you think to yourself, oh, okay, this cowl is advertised as a 23-inch cowl. I've got a 23.5-inch head, or I've got a 23.25 or whatever. I've got something slightly bigger. Oh, it's not going to fit me. And the majority of the time, like, it's not so much to do with cowl size. It's more to do with head shape. Like, everyone has a different head shape. We've got cowls that are sort of 24 inches, and they are 24 inches. But you'll have someone who has a 23.5-inch head, and they'll say, oh, no, guys, this is too small for me. And we'll have people with slightly over 24, and they'll say, oh, I'm swimming in this thing. So it's weird because it's not just about the head circumference. It's about how the cowl's built, how the cowl's designed, whether it's snug here, whether it's snug up on the jaw. I've got cowls like, oh no, I can't pick one off my head, but I've got some that are very, very, very snug from front to back and wouldn't allow for any more room really. But I've got loads of room in the top of the head, and I've got that sort of like flappy jaw syndrome that you get going on.
Yeah.
So, it's really sort of a thing of there's nothing that can be done about it, but it sort of grinds my gears how set in stone some sort of attitudes are as far as what will fit and what don't, and the expectations that you buy a cowl in that size and it's going to fit everyone with like a glove. Right. Like people will come to us and say, have you got anything with a 23-inch? We'll say, yeah, we've got something in a 23-inch. And yeah, the majority of the time it will fit. But of course, there are always going to be some people who have maybe a fuller face down here, or maybe they've got a more domed type head. We just came out with that 23-inch fabric, and it fits Phil. Phil's got a 23-inch head. I've got a 23.5-inch head. Oh, there you go. That's the 25-inch version.
Right.
So yeah, Phil's got a 23-inch head. I've got a 23.5-inch head. Fits Phil absolutely like a glove, like no wiggle room back to front. But Phil's got a lot of room on the top of his head. He could push the cowl in and then it'll indent. I've got a bigger head than Phil. I put it on, and I've got wiggle room backwards and forwards. But if I push down on the top, there's like no room. It fits very well from there to there.
Right.
So I guess like the sort of outcome of this is that I think whenever you buy any cowl, you should automatically expect to be fitting padding in somewhere.
Right. Yeah, I've been fairly fortunate with most of the cowls that I've gotten, but and I've talked about this several times on BatChat. You cannot take Cowell Sizing at face value, because like I've got a 24, like a perfect 24-inch head, exactly 24 inches.
Well, I mean, define perfect.
Well, like around where you're supposed to measure your head is a 24-inch. Well, yeah. It's 24. I'm like basically a cylinder, my entire face. There is actually some truth to that, because I mean I've got these thicker because I'm fat, I've got thicker cheeks and everything, not just on my face. Yeah, right. Just kidding. I'm absolutely flat back there. But anyway, but yeah, even buying 24-inch cowls, there was a point where I had a dozen cowls. All of them claimed to be 24 inches, but they fit so differently. And even from the same manufacturer, like for instance, like with you guys, I've got this Fabric cowl. It's a 25-inch cowl. I should be swimming in this, and I've had 24.5-inch cowls that I am swimming in. But with this one, because of how it fits, like you said, I've got room at the top. Front to back, it seems like it's about right. With this one, I did trim the eyes. That's just a preference thing. But most time with cowls like this have like the eyelids, it like presses into my eyes. With this one, it's very comfortable. But I did get a little bit of puffy cheek syndrome. Not much, but just a little bit, which was surprising to me. And I do have to put a little bit of padding in the top. Your Justice League cowl, for one thing, it is my favorite Justice League cowl, and what's just a little side tangent there. I would argue, we talk about screen accuracy being a subjective thing. I would argue yours is the more screen accurate one, because Zack Snyder shared a picture of a Justice League cowl, and I could have swore it was one of yours. And I think you and I actually talked about that.
When I first saw it, I could have swore it was one of ours.
Like, you guys are the only ones I know that get the neckline right, and I don't understand why other makers don't do that. But anyway, that one fits me like a glove. I don't need any padding whatsoever. It's like you sculpted it on my face. Whereas the DOJ cowl, which I think now you guys have updated it, because you've had a few different people have had this issue, but like it was a 24-inch, but it was not fitting me at all. Just it was really small on me, and it's strange because I don't hope you guys don't mind if I mention other makers, but like I've had Reeves DOJ cowl, multiple versions of his DOJ cowl, Hernandez DOJ cowl, I had an Applied Science DOJ cowl, I had your DOJ cowl, all saying they're 24 inches, but they're not. They all fit completely different. But
that's what I'm saying. The ridiculous thing is they all are probably 24 inches. It's right. Just that just that they're going to be bigger or smaller or tighter, or a big difference is how many layers of urethane you put in there as you're casting it, how you cast it, whether you've got it in a roto frame casting, or whether you're just putting the urethane in there and letting it sort of drip out. There are so many factors involved that determine the fit and its rigidity and all kinds of things like that. It's making this stuff, it's much more of an art than a science. It really is. Like, I'd hate anybody. Well, I wouldn't hate anybody. I'd hate to go through the ball ache of having to find a way to mass produce this sort of stuff.
Right.
Yeah. On a larger scale, I mean, we've talked about it. It's just there's no way of having it come out exactly the same every time.
Right.
Doesn't matter how good you are. We get them close. We get them down there perfect, but every now and then there's always one of those that goes in the bin because it just comes out a completely different way. Too thick at the back, too thick on the eyes.
Urethane is temperature sensitive as well, depending on how. So if it's a very hot day and you're trying to cast something and the urethane just wants to sort of like harden up or thicken up very fast, then you've got to work twice as fast. You've got to sort of get the urethane to where it needs to be and got to make sure that it has an even coating and that it's not all going to settle in one place and want to thicken up in that one place. So.
Right. So, understanding a little bit of the process of like how to make cowls, what would you say is the harder piece to make, like as far as urethane bits? So you got like emblems, gauntlets. You like how you use bits there? I'm trying to assimilate to your culture.
I'm laughing because I know exactly what the answer is, and so does Phil.
As far as like, because you guys make gauntlets, which I absolutely adore your gauntlets. I've got 2 pair, and I know you guys have made, have dabbled in like emblems and other pieces as well. But as far as like cowls, like as far as urethane pieces go, which ones are the harder ones to make?
Phil?
Gauntlets every time.
Yeah. So the thing with a cowl, right, is imagine you're throwing urethane essentially into like essentially what is a bucket, right? Because that's what you're looking at. You're looking at the inside of a mold, the negative of a cowl, right? So you throw the urethane in there and you're trying to get an even coating all around the outside. And yeah, you can put a glove on your hand and you can put your hand in there and sort of help to encourage the urethane to where it needs to be. Now, imagine that's when you've got something that's like the depth of your head and is as wide, has an entrance as wide as a neck, or Batman's neck's even a little bit thicker than
versus
that,
something
right?
Like this.
Yeah, right? I'm going to make an admission right now for you. Me and Phil both, whenever we're casting the gauntlets, we put on gloves that are designed for checking out the rear end passages of cows and livestock. You know the veterinary gloves. Yeah, they're like arm's length.
I can see you guys strapping
and
up.
that's what it feels a little bit like as well. You're sort of blind, going by feel alone, because your whole arm is taking up the entrance of the mold, and you sort of like thinking, does that feel like it's where it's supposed to be? Yeah, okay. So yeah,
there will be some time in my future where I'm passing a field and there'll be a cow trying to give birth and a crowd around it, and I'll just walk up and be like, I've got this.
I got this.
Don't worry.
Yeah, and he'll put his hand in and he'll just pull straight out a nice fresh pair of DOJ gauntlets.
About to say. I mean, ironically, they do have a really leathery texture. I mean, I guess kind of, that's where that's the secret. That's where you guys really get this stuff.
The thing with our gauntlets is they're really hard to cast, and then the time it takes once they're cast to then turn them into the finished product is one of the longest things it takes us. You cast a cowl, you've got to clean it, wash it, cut it, send it out, job done, sort of thing.
Right.
Whereas the gauntlet takes, and a lot of people say, yeah, they're over-engineered, but they're over-engineered to make them
easier for you
guys to put on.
Right.
If you damage the wrist part, you could just buy a wrist part off us. If you damage the gauntlet part, you could just buy a gauntlet part off us. We'll help you out.
Right.
The zip in that area helps it. You could unzip it, have it make it move a bit better. Just all that sort of stuff when we thought we were making it. Because I'm a bit of a cosplayer, so it's from a bit of a cosplayer's background of how would this be best for me?
Right.
Yeah, when we go about doing stuff, like one of the dangers, because look, Phil's got quite a long history of making cosplay things like, I mean, you can see up in the top left hand corner there, Iron Man. I've got a history of making props and things for like TV and theatre and stuff like this. And coming into this, like one of the sort of most dangerous things that you can do is to research too much into how other people do theirs, because it gives you that sort of preconceived notion of, oh, well, this is how they do theirs, that's how it must be done. So when it came to doing the gauntlets, like we just purposefully didn't really look at how anyone else did theirs. We sort of approached it with, well, how would we do this? How would we want it to be? How would we want it to be constructed? How would we want the masters to be printed? How would we want it all to go together? So we sort of came up with our own thing, released it, then looked at a few other people and how they did theirs, and sort of soon realized, oh, we've made a bit of a hard time for ourselves. Like, they are over engineered, but a lot of people come to us and say that they really like them and that it's the best pair they've ever had, which is nice. So that's the payoff.
I mean, it's definitely my favorite. I mean, and yes, I would agree they are over engineered, but it's like, this is just a testament to you guys, honestly, because like there are other makers who will put in zippers for you, who will do interchangeable fins and stuff like that, and a matching hand wrap and knuckles and everything, like, but you're gonna, for one thing, pay out the ass for it, but also it's all upcharge. Like a lot of makers will sell you a pair of gauntlets, and then you have to say, well, do you have hand wraps and knuckles? And then, oh yeah, you can add all that on. And then, but if you want the interchangeable fins, I used to just put Velcro on the gauntlets just so I can swap different pieces out, which is fine, but it doesn't look as good. And then if you want the interchangeable fins, well, that's an extra such and such. And you want a zipper to put in, well, you can glue the zipper in yourself, which I kind of got to the point where I was pretty handy with stuff like that. But for a lot of people, like, you just drop a couple $100 on these gauntlets. I don't want to screw it up by slicing it for one and then messing up the zipper. So I guess I'll just have to pay an extra $100 for you to put them in. Whereas with you guys, like, these things are pretty much turnkey. Like, you take them out of the box and you put them on. They're already set. And one of the things also, just to further stroke your egos a little bit, every gauntlet that I've ever gotten, I end up repainting the fins and the knuckles, because everyone, especially for DOJ, now of course screen accuracy is subjective again, but everyone uses the wrong color. They use like more of a gold leaf type color, when you really want more of that aged kind of bronze or brass, really more of a brass kind of look. So I would always repaint all the fins and everything with some acrylic paint and do weathering, stuff like that. I got yours in, and I was like, man, these are pretty much perfect right out of the box. I still have not gotten around to doing it just because there's not really much reason to. So again, they're turnkey, and gauntlets are not cheap by any means. From what I remember of everyone else's pricing, I think your pricing is definitely is competitive. But again, with the engineering that's gone into it, the fact that anyone can buy these gauntlets, and from a cosplayer's perspective, they're a heck of a lot easier to get on. I have yet to have one break. I've yet to even have a zipper break on them. And these get used. I mean, I cosplay a lot, do a lot of birthday parties and appearances and stuff like that, and have yet to have an issue with them. So, yeah, for what it's worth.
Yeah, no, that's worth a lot. Thank you. I mean, we're not saying that you'll never have to repaint them. Obviously, in all honesty, when we make stuff, about maybe 10-15% of what we make actually ends up on our shop or being sold. Like, we do a lot of R&D. Our R&D turnover is ridiculous. Not just like urethane parts and casting different things and getting masters, but in the sense of just like different paints, the amount of paints we go through, the amount of different micas that we go through because we're not very pleased with that mica, or it's too gold, or it's too shiny, and then things like lacquer, like if we're going to lacquer something to make sure the paint sort of stays on there or give it a bit of a chance of not rubbing off so easily. Like, some lacquers bend better than other lacquers. Some glues glue better than other glues and are more flexible than other glues. And then what do you do when that glue is no longer available or runs out of stock? So yeah, we go through a lot to make things last as long as possible. And like we said before, Phil's a cosplayer. I've got a lot of history in film and TV. We want to make things that do last at least for a little bit. So Thank you.
Absolutely.
And one other thing we always try to do when we make stuff is I like to think anyway, because I'm from more of an Iron Man background. Sorry, guys. But
We'll forgive you.
when you
I
have an
won't.
Iron Man suit, you don't just have the suit. You know, you want the face mask that lifts up. You want the little side rockets. You want the arm blasters. You want all that little gadgety stuff, and that's Iron Man. It's not
Yeah.
just the suit. So when we make anything, it's like how, and I always say to Tom, it's like, how can we make not just Batman, but the Bruce Wayne, the Wayne
Yeah.
tech, you
So
know?
like Walt Disney had this sort of phrase, and he called it plussing it, right? So whenever he'd sort of like design something, or whenever they're going to install a new ride, he'd always ask the team, how can we plus it? The Imagineers, how can we plus it? And that's what we always do, is we always sit there and we think, okay, well, this is good, this is nice, we've got something. Can we plus it? And is plussing it just going to be gilding the lily? You guys have that phrase, gilding the lily?
I've heard the phrase. It's not a very common one over here.
Well, yeah, it's basically like, is it going to be gilding the lily? Like, are people going to appreciate it? Is it going to be worth the time that goes into it? And sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But yeah, normally that's what we do. You know, if we're going to get one of our masters printed, we don't just, the majority of the time, FDM print it. We make sure we get it professionally resin printed on, resin printers that cost $750,000. Do you know what I mean? The sort of equipment that people just don't normally have access to.
So speaking of resin printing, a mutual friend of ours, Mr. Enoch, said that you guys have a particular bargaining chip that you like to throw out to get good pricing on resin printing. What's the story there?
Well, all right. So very, very, very quick story. Me and Phil knew each other for quite a long time, and then when COVID hit, me and Phil ended up joining this group that was basically mass printing PPE equipment for NHS hospitals in the UK. And we started doing that, and very quickly, various different companies, so courier companies, basically companies that had infrastructure that wasn't being used because everyone was off with COVID, or, it was the first lockdown, so no one was working. They
Right.
wanted to, A, use their infrastructure, but B, they probably wanted to get, in the good books, and they wanted the publicity of saying that they were doing good stuff. So obviously, a lot of printing companies sort of contacted us, and just long story short, we did them a few favors, and now they owe us a few favors.
So that's a much more wholesome story than I was hoping to get out of you, because Mike said y'all just threatened to send people some of Phil's old nudes.
Oh yeah, that's what I told Mike. Yeah, I said we get it by sending nudes, and he said, "Oh, how much is a nude of Phil worth?" And I said, "No, no, 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 no." I said we send the nudes if they don't give us the print.
Yeah. Recently, I got a message from someone. Ironically, there's a funny story there, but I got a message from someone saying they've got nude photos of me that they were blackmailing me with. I was like, shouldn't you be threatening my family with that? Why are you bothering me?
Yeah,
My own wife doesn't want to see that half the time. What's funny though is a friend. It was one of a friend situations. He got the same message. And he actually fell for it and sent the person money, and sent them, said, well, for $300 I won't release it. Well, then they just thought, well, it'll be another 300, another 300. Ended up being $1,500 to basically keep his nudes from leaking. Which, if your nudes are leaking, go talk to your doctor. But anyway, so I thought, well, okay, so they might have something then, if they're hitting multiple people, which I don't have any nudes floating around, just so you know, unless someone like hacked my iCloud or something, but I tend to not send those. But anyway, I called just to try to report the number, it's like a blackmailing, or I can't remember what they call it, sexploitation or something like that, hotline, to try to report that number. And they said it was a free consultation, but it's actually not. They'll talk to you for about 5 minutes, and then they said, well, we can actually take over your case and guarantee that your photos will not get leaked and any damage or anything we'll take care of. Guess how much their fees were?
$300, or we'll send you nudes out to everyone.
No, it was $1,500 was the actual fee. I was like, oh. I said, are you working for them? I said, they're only asking They're only asking $300. I'm willing to take that chance. They can screw me over 5 times, and I'm still making money on this deal.
The funny thing about calling that line, right, is that the second you call that line, they're gonna know that you're worried because you genuinely think there are nudes of you out there.
Right.
So they've got you.
They've got you.
They'll be ringing their mate like, oh yeah, so you want to ring Derek and threaten to release those nudes because he thinks that people have them. So
well, and I think I kind of caught the guy off guard because I'm like, "Are you working for them?" He's like, "Well, you don't want this to get out." It's like, I don't care. I mean, it's my family and friends that should be scared if they end up seeing that.
The funny thing is that this is a very different scenario for a lot of guys than it is for a lot of women, because for a lot of women, obviously, if nudes get leaked of women, they're probably going to be used inappropriately, and it's that sort of like invasion of privacy thing. It's not very nice. If anyone out there has nudes of me, knock yourself out, guys. Have a great time. Do you know what I mean? Just
you should have contacted them, Derek, and said, "Look, send me £300, or I will send you nudes."
That's what I'll do next time. That's what I'll do next time. So okay, back on track there. So
I don't remember that being one of the pre-agreed questions.
Well. So when I told Mike I was interviewing you guys, he said you need to ask him about that, and then we got into my sexploitation. So that's just what BatChat is, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so I already kind of know Phil's answer because he kind of alluded to it earlier, but just kind of quick fire. You guys can take turns on this. What is your least favorite item that you make? And this is in general.
Go. Well, Phil, what's yours? All right, I'll go first. It's the belts. It's the belts.
I figured it was
the belts because there's so much to them. They're so. I mean, like we talked about the gauntlets being over-engineered. The belts are ridiculous. Like, first you've got to print all the boxes, and then you've got to, when they're printed, you've got to dry them, and then you've got to cure them. Then you've got to sort out any defects with them or sand them off a little bit. Then you've got to spray them black. Then you've got to mask them off. Then you've got to paint them gold. And then you've got to sort out the leather, and you've got to drill the holes in the leather, cut the leather into the right shape. And then you have to put the magnets in the boxes, put the magnets in the lids. You've got to put them together. You've got to hinge it all. You've got to put them all on the belt. You've got to cast the belt buckles. You've got to mask that off. You've got to stick the belt buckles on, screw them on. And that's without a voice changer integrated into it. Then when it comes to integrating a voice changer, you've got to solder it up. You've got to test to see if it's working. You've got to put it in the belt, test to see if it's working again, make a mic, make a throat mic. Fuck me. Like, by the time if a Cowell order comes in or a gauntlet order comes in, realistically, we look at it and we're like, even though we have a 6-week turnaround, that doesn't mean it takes 6 weeks for your order to make. That means that there's 6 weeks worth of other guys that we've got to get through first to be able to make your order. So we're sort of like, okay, well, we can do that in turn. And we know that when it comes time to actually making that cowl or making those gauntlets, maybe it'll take like a few days to turn it around and trim it and do it. When I get a belt order come in, I'm like, shit, I've got to start printing those bits, and we've got to start manufacturing them now, because it can sometimes take like a good 4 to 6 weeks just getting all of that done.
Yeah, I kind of figured it was the belt. I love the belt too. The belt's great. I actually used the voice modulator. I mean, I've used it several times, like here and like for videos and stuff like that. But I actually used it at the last con I was at, and it was a lot of fun. The one issue I had was I should have used my lighter cape, because I used one of John's heavier capes, and the speaker box is back here. So like I have to like move the cape slightly, or you're not hearing it. It's not getting through that pleather.
Hey, you know, I mean, it's like with everything. Doing cosplay, you do the best that you can to produce the look, and in this case, the sound that you can. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. Do you know what I mean? Like, Batfleck is supposed to have little speakers down here where his voice comes out. There's no way that we can engineer that to be underneath a cowl and still come out the way that you'd want it to come out. It's just, do the best you can do.
Yeah.
If you can edit that out later on, Derek, when you ask that question to Tom and he says belts, and then halfway through just go like 2 hours later, one of those clocks that just says 2 hours later. In fact, he's still going on about it.
Yeah, 2 hours later he's like, and then I got to do this, and then I got to fucking do that, and oh god damn it, and but we really love it when people order our belts.
Yeah.
I'll do Alter Ego Studios on, and all they're going to do is bitch about the stuff that they make.
Yeah.
I'll do you one better. I won't edit that out, and I'll leave this bit in.
For just to give the illusion of continuity.
Exactly. So okay, well, Phil, what was your? Are you just agreeing with him? It's the belt.
For me, at the moment, we're splitting. Me and Tom split the difference. I do most of the casting, and Tom does the production of the belts and the production of the gauntlets. So at the moment, I just have to say casting in general, because that's all I do. But
that's what you do.
Yeah, his most hated job is also his most favourite job, which is his only job, which is to fucking cast.
Well, I would say the gauntlets. The gauntlets are just
I'm sorry, I know how.
Don't come out.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was going to say the gauntlets because they're just
too reminiscent of putting your hand up a horse's arse.
Yeah, there's that as well.
Does it
reminiscent would mean that I have memory of doing a horse's arse before, and it reminds me of that doing it again, which is true.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Well, hopefully, it doesn't. Hopefully, it doesn't trigger your anxiety to the point where you're just doing something you don't enjoy.
If you ever meet him in person, sniff his fingers.
Yeah, right.
You know what?
Ironically, that's an American thing. I pretty much do that with everyone I meet. Is the first thing I do is smell their fingers.
Yeah, yeah. Better say sorry.
Is when you've got, like, we had quite a run of gauntlets when we first started doing them, and before Tom just said to me, like, get some of those gloves. Before that, I was putting my hand in there, and I'm quite a hairy guy.
Yeah.
So that
your arms.
Thing, just my arm was just black, and I'd be going out wearing a t-shirt because it was the summer. It was the summer last year, and people would be looking at me, and I'd be like, "It's a tattoo. What do you want?"
Cool tattoo, Phil.
Horses would be turning.
Why is your tattoo all flaking off and?
So not exactly quick fire, but I guess that worked. All right. So what's your favorite thing to make? We'll turn this around to be positive now.
Whatever's for me, it's whatever the newest thing we've got out is.
Yeah.
Simple. We like fall in love with the new stuff. Like the old stuff becomes routine, and we're just boshing it out, and we've seen 1,000 of them. Whereas, the new stuff like this 23-inch fabric looks absolutely fantastic. I can't get enough of it. Keep on putting it on. It's great.
Yeah. I love my fabric cowl. That's great.
I would say my favorite thing is the next thing we're about to make, because we love a little bit of tinkering, a bit of R&D, and a lot of the stuff, like Tom said before, I'd love to put photos of it on, because I've spent hours like painting it and making it look exact, and I'm being really happy with it. But as soon as I put a photo up, someone's going to go, how much? I want one. And I think it's not something we can't produce it. It's not something we can't mass produce easily enough. Like I know our friend Aaron. I don't know if you've ever heard of him on BatChat before, but the elusive Aaron. Really wants, and it's here actually, a backbrander, which I made one of a while back, and it's not, me and Tom. it's not functioning, but we did make a way. We did think of a way, which I won't give away, of making it quite cool.
Oh, we've had loads of ideas with that bat brander of
Yeah.
I was
different
thinking
things
that kind of ties in with the whole thing with the horse. But also, I do a lot of birthday parties, and sometimes those kids get a little unruly. So,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I used to hand out autographed batarangs. I think that's even better, and that's more permanent. Like, man, Batman came to my birthday party. That'd be cool.
yeah.
Just
Definitely.
if
Hey,
the
FBI,
Nords
if you're
just
watching
hand
this
out
later, I'm
banners.
not actually planning on doing this. Just so you know.
Well, I don't know who this Aaron guy is, but you can tell him to piss off next time.
He would ask, piss where? Anyway, so kind of using a little bit of a transition to another topic. So obviously, the Batman is released, and there are some forums on Facebook. They're saying that the spoiler ban lasts to the 14th. Not on BatChat. This is my show, so Jamie, back off. I'm kidding. We love you, Jamie. Kind of. But so we're going to talk about spoilers. But before we do, I do got to ask the controversial Pattinson bat suit. Are you guys going to be making any gear for that? Are you doing anything for that?
I don't know. You tell us. Are we going to be doing it? I don't know. The thing is we go hot and cold off stuff all the time, like every day. Like you ask me today and I could be like, no, we're never going to touch it. You ask me tomorrow and I could be like, yeah, that's it. We're full on going to go for this. So as I said, only about 10-15% of everything that we do ever actually makes it out there. So even if I turn around and said to you, yeah, we're going to do it, it could get to the point where we just think, nah, do you know what, it's not good enough, or no, do you know what, it's not up our street, or we don't fancy it. So, I mean, if enough people want it, the thing is with the cowl is that at the moment you've got a lot of options with the cowl.
Right.
None of them are being done the way I would like to see it done, and the way that I would do it if we were to do it. But you've got a lot of options out there. And the other thing, of course, is that Warner Brothers are selling their own.
Right.
Warner Brothers actually have, I know there's only 200 copies of it, but the big question is, does that make it untouchable? Does that make it more hot? Would it be stupid to go and do something that they're selling a version of?
It's funny
Answers
because
on a postcard.
before the film, I was not interested in doing the cowl, and then after the film came out and we went and seen it, I was like, yeah, let's get that done. Let's do something with it. And then I seen Warner Brothers were doing it and was just like, we're not doing it. And then it's on and off every day, as well as everything is with us. We talk about so many different things we could do and that we're going to do, and then we don't. So
Yeah.
there is no straight answer to that, unfortunately.
No, I'll tell you about one thing that I do like is that chest. Like AE. The thing about AE is I feel as though as makers go, like we're quite versatile as far as the skill sets that we have. We don't just cast things out of urethane. We do a lot of printing. We do a lot of electronics. We do a lot of it's like multi-disciplined. I really like the look of that chest and ab armor with the removable emblem that maybe magnetically snaps together to make the knife, and then you unsnap it back into the V shape and pop it back in your chest. So I don't know. Watch this space.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned the cowl. Now, I haven't seen much of the Warner Brothers cowl other than just a few of the pictures online of it. Ironically, doesn't look right. Something about it doesn't look quite right, which you would think with it being, mommy and daddy's company, they'd get that right, but I don't know. And also, and again, this is personal preference thing, because the three of us have kind of talked about that before too. Like, hey, is this going to happen? Right now, everyone's doing it. So, like, what are you going to do that's different? And something that is kind of funny to me is that, with the exception of a few people, there have been some some revelations about that suit recently. Like basically the fact that everyone's been doing it wrong this whole time. Because like the armor bits, like everyone did like a black and gray like urethane or foam armor, and it's not that. It's like a canvas Kevlar type thing. So a few people are kind of like going back to the drawing board and like, okay, well, we're going to try to do that now. And then like the cowl, there was some behind the scenes photos where like that's an actual leather cowl that he's wearing. And you can see like with the scratches that it has, is it not leather?
As far as I know, and I'm prepared to be wrong about this, as far as I know, it is vacuum formed urethane parts stitched together that look like leather.
Interesting. Because like some of the, I mean, unless they just did an excellent job modeling it, like several of the scratches you see on the cowl towards the end of the film look very, very accurate to how leather looks as it gets distressed. So that's interesting. I was under the impression it was leather.
I wouldn't be surprised if what they'd done is they'd made the master out of leather, they'd sort of unstitched it, and then, did I say vacuum formed? I meant vacuum cast. And basically, what I'd be surprised if they made the master out of leather, they took it apart, they took each section of the cowl, and then they cast it in, or made the mold out of silicone using the leather, took the leather out, and then they basically pour in the urethane, put it in a vacuum, it goes to where it needs to go to, and then they take each part out, trim it off, stitch it together just like the original.
Interesting. It seems like you could just make it out of leather, be a hell of a lot easier.
Maybe.
It makes sense.
You've only got the one, and if something happens to it, you have to make another. Whereas if you've got the vacuum form to make it from, you can just knock out 100 in a day.
Yeah, and then at least the grain itself is, because with leather and with wood, you've obviously got a grain. Like people, especially like Star Wars fans, point out all the time when things are made to look the same, but they've got a grain that doesn't match. Like, oh, this is the cowl, or this is the tool that was used in this part of the film, but then it's meant to be the same tool, but you can clearly see it's a different one because it's got a different rivet or some sort of different grain or some sort of different, there's some, the fans point out the differences, they notice it. So for continuity's sake, you sort of have to fake that. If there's anything that's ever going to be made out of wood that you've got to have multiples of because you're going to need multiples of it, then you have to fake the wood.
Right. Is that a euphemism?
Yeah. There's no greater way than faking the wood.
I was wondering where that was coming from. Well, faking it multiple times, Anyway. Yeah, not a kid's show, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, well, that's interesting. I'll have to look into that because I could have sworn it was leather, but like I said, I mean...
I said, I'm totally willing to be wrong about that, but there was a post on Facebook that I saw posted by someone we both know, and that's what they said. And normally they're the sort of person to do quite a lot of research on this stuff and know what they're talking about, and there were various pictures, so thought that was very interesting.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll have to look into that because I have not seen the post you're referring to, but I have no reason to think you would lie to me. Because if you did, I'll come find you. Anyway, so, well, since we're on that topic, just for a few minutes, we can kind of talk a little bit about the Batman. All of us have seen it, right? We've all gotten to experience it multiple times, too, haven't you? I've seen it twice.
Unfortunately, I'm a one and done, and I can't get it up again.
That's what I hear.
That's what it says on the bus shelter.
I've had a headache, not tonight, I haven't had the time, unfortunately, but I said to Tom when we came out, Tom, he had his opinion. He was like, what do you think? I was like, I need to watch it again. Because whenever I watch something first time, it doesn't matter if it's just a Batman movie or anything, but obviously a Batman movie, I'm looking at, what's the suit doing, how the armor pieces fitting together, what tech's he about to bring out, how's he done that, and all this sort of stuff. And I lose track of the plot. So I have to watch it again. Plus, Tom bought me a massive drink, which meant most of the time I was looking for the closest toilet.
Yeah.
I'm sure he just wanted the arm room.
Well,
Only
honestly, I mean, he's provided the solution there. It's a giant cup.
Yeah, is that only Phil and my grandma have to piss every 30 minutes? Do you know what I mean? It's crazy. But I think the other thing is now look, like full disclosure, like we absolutely loved the movie. We absolutely loved it, but it doesn't help that the screening that we went to, which was literally on the midnight of the Thursday, is gonna last until 3:30 in the morning. So
You're a little
obviously
delirious.
you've got a bit of fatigue by the time it's ending, and you're sort of thinking, right, how soon are the credits going to roll so that I can piss? And then when you really need a piss, and you always just make it to the toilet in time. Do you know what I mean? Like the second that you get to the toilet and the lid goes up and the fucking trousers come down around your ankles and you lift your t-shirt up like that's it. You start pissing, right? So the problem is that the credits start rolling, and you're like, oh fucking the piss is coming, but you're waiting for that end credit scene. What's the end credit scene gonna be? What's the end credit scene gonna be? And then you're like, oh fuck, it's just a fucking green question mark and a fucking goodbye, and then like some fucking stupid code, and by then you've fucking got wet trousers, and you're like, that wasn't worth it. I wasn't worth pissing myself for that. So
to be honest, I thought I got a free refill. I wasn't even sure. I was like,
yeah,
they've come around and filled this back up.
I didn't know they served Mountain Dew.
I'd say the worst part of that is I could so picture you doing that. It's just walking into, because, and no lie, I have actually seen that at a movie theater. I can just see, not Tom, but I can totally see Tom just standing at the urinal with his ponytail and his pants around his ankles, just bare assing it, t-shirt pulled up. Yeah. Just whipping it all over the place, because it was actually trying to think. I think it was one of the Avengers movie. I think it was like Avengers Endgame. It was Endgame, because that's a long movie, and I stayed for all the post-credit scenes. And usually I'm good at holding it, but by the end I just couldn't do it. And I walk in there, and there's this dude who, it wasn't like he was geriatric and just didn't know any better. Like, dude had to have been like in his 30s or something, and had just the hairiest ass I've ever seen. But pants around on the floor, just whipping it out and just doing it. I'm like, what are you doing? You're in public, man.
It's not his house. Treat yourself. Do the full, if you can, do the full like 90-degree spread. Do you know what I mean? Like rotate like a sprinkler. Like even if it's just one of those like set urinals and not the big thing. Just why not? Do you know what I mean?
Sprinkler thing.
Make your mark.
Yeah,
that's what I say.
Whew. Okay. Well, speaking of making marks, so you watched it twice. Phil says he's going to watch it twice, but he's just going to keep on procrastinating. So upon second viewing, because I think that's an interesting perspective, was there anything that you noticed, any like particular Easter eggs, or maybe some criticisms that you had maybe the first time you watched it that kind of resolved themselves, or maybe some new things kind of came up?
Do you know what? I mean, I thought the second time around would drag a bit more than the first time around, because 3 hours is a long film time, but I came out of the first one thinking 3 hours long, that's a long film, but what can you cut? What would I cut? Like, right. Yeah, okay, there's a few little bit of dialogue scenes, but that dialogue is important to the sort of narrative of the film, and if it's not important to this film, it'll be important to the narrative of the trilogy if they come out with it. But actually, the second one for me didn't drag at all. It was nice, because I was able to sort of focus a little bit more on the narrative, on the sort of the dialogue. One of the things that, to me, the first time round was a bit of a blur was that car chase scene. Obviously, it's raining, and it's what I call like the Michael Bay of cinematography. It's just everything's just happening in front of you. It's a series of moving fucking images and sounds, and you're trying to decipher like what the hell is going on there. Second time around, because I knew it was coming, I'd seen it the first time, I was able to sort of pay a bit more attention on it. yeah, it was good. A good car chase scene. I liked it. What can I say? Apart from that, there's not necessarily anything that I noticed more. I mean, how about you, man? Like, fire the question back to you.
So for me, there were a few things that, like certain twists that I was kind of anticipating. Being more of a comic geek, I'm like, okay, looking for Easter eggs and everything and trying to find it, and like, okay, trying to anticipate, like, okay, well, I think they're going to do this instead of this or whatever. So the first time, kind of getting over the initial shock, there was a little bit of fatigue there too, because I drove 3.5 hours one way to go see it. So
That's the longest film.
Yeah, it literally. And so there's a little bit of fatigue setting in. There were several things about it that I appreciated the second time around that just didn't register the first time. Like, Batman loses in this movie. He lost. Sure, Riddler was put in jail, but like he failed several times throughout the movie, and big failures. And those failures are going to have long-lasting consequences that don't just affect him. Like when he thought that he could, I mean, technically he could trust the police force, but when he brought Falcone out into public, thus resulting in his death, that creates a power vacuum that they're absolutely going to milk for the next few movies, or at least through the Penguin HBO Max show, which I'm really looking forward to because Colin Farrell was amazing as the Penguin. But so you saw that and I was like, wow, that's kind of a rookie move. I feel like he should have seen something like that happening, but he didn't. He didn't see it. And then with the whole issue of not understanding the last clue, with the carpet tucker, and realizing that Riddler's final plan, which was to flood, part of Gotham,
I mean,
he lost.
The only point of that entire scene was to show you that he had failed, wasn't it? Because really, like, it had no relevance to the plot. Whether he had discovered that carpet tucker clue or not, it still would have blown up. It just so happens that he figured it out, discovered the carpet tucker clue, pulled back the carpet literally 2 seconds before all the bombs went off. How fortuitous is that?
Right. Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, if he'd have found out or just not even noticed it, and then all of a sudden bombs are blowing up, like, what the crap?
Or maybe if he had heard the first boom and been like, shall I go check out that boom or shall I rip this carpet back? Rip the carpet back. Fuck. Do you know what I mean? Like, all right, I should probably go see what that boom was.
Something else, too, that I did notice it the first time around, but I really appreciate it the second time around. I don't know where they filmed a lot of the movie. I mean, I know a lot of it was filmed over in y'all's neck of the woods, but like I don't know if all of it was. But that is the most Gotham City looking Gotham City we've ever seen. In the Bale trilogy, it was Chicago. Obviously Chicago, and there were some spots that weren't, but for the most part, Gotham City was based on Chicago. In the Snyderverse, it was, the little bit that you saw was very much kind of New Jersey. The Tim Burton stuff was just on a crappy soundstage that looked like a Tim Burton city. In my opinion, I thought it was crappy, but so like as far as the architecture, the just even seeing like the Wayne estate, seeing the inside of it was very gothic, and to me it looks more like Gotham City than any other movie we've seen, and it was very recognizable.
So that's the thing, isn't it? Is that, Gotham in the sort of graphic novels, comics, it is this very gothic-y looking city. It's obviously an East Coast city because it's obviously got a lot of very gothic architecture, which tends to be more colonial cities in the States. Like if you go to Boston or if you go to New York, you're going to see that sort of thing. If you go to LA or San Fran, you're not necessarily going to see as much of it. So really, like, England is the perfect place to film that sort of stuff. I mean, if you rock around England, you can come across where they filmed Wayne Manor in the Nolan trilogy, and where they filmed, like near Phil is, they filmed a lot of it in Liverpool, right?
I was going to say, fun fact, right? So the bit with him coming out of the steps, with the columns, the pillars, that's Liverpool. The bit where he jumps off the top of the tower, That's the Liver building in Liverpool.
Oh, sorry.
And the funniest thing is a friend of mine actually owns one of the Gotham GCPD cars that was used in Batman v Superman.
Really? Nice.
Yeah, and he lives up the road towards that way, and I do a little bit of work for him every now and then. And he said we were out on a job and we had the GCPD, and it's a beast. It is a beast. And he says, "Oh, let's nip into Liverpool." So we nipped in, and it was about a week after they'd filmed the Gotham scenes for Batman, which my wife, actually worked up the road, and she was sending me pictures as it was happening.
That's
Very
really
jealous.
cool.
But we pulled up in front of that building with the columns and the pillars and everything, got out, and my mate took a picture of me wife, sort of thing, in front of the car. And then a couple of days later, I was scrolling through, and on one of the DC pages, it was a picture of the GCPD in front of that building, the back of my head, and the title said, "The Flash film being filmed in Liverpool." And I was like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
That's just me going for a cruise.
Yeah, exactly. You know, if they say the Flash is in Liverpool, you want to pull your trousers up, mate. Hey, how funny was it? How funny was it to see Batman fucking flop himself when he was jumping off that building? Do you know, like you said it before, man, is the Batman there was a lot of failures that he had, but even small time, like even in the fights, he was getting hit a lot. Like even with the parachute, he fucking flopped the landing totally. Like in a way, there's like no real scenes in that film where Batman is this sort of perfect oiled machine. Like he is obviously year two. He is obviously like rough and ready to tumble, but fucks up a lot during the way.
Which to me is really funny because, you know, obviously there's the most comparable movie we've had so far is Batman Begins to this one. Even though that's more of a Batman Year One type thing. But what's funny is, you know, they show a little bit of Bale failing as Batman in that movie. But for the most part, he's pretty much got it figured out. You know, especially that first scene, you know, where he traps Falcone, which they call him Falcone in that one, which is incorrect. It's Falcone.
Yeah, but they also say Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah. Yeah, well, people... Well, and then they made a joke about Ra's al Ghul. Like, oh, come on, people. But anyway, but he pretty much had it figured out at that point. They had a few, like the first time he put on the suit and with like the ski mask or whatever, you know, he fell off the roof. But, you know, then he's like driving the Batmobile perfectly and intimidating these thugs. And, you know, then they'll throw in, of course, that scarecrow thing and stuff like that. But for the most part, you know, he pretty much had his stuff together. But in this one, like, yeah, he's very much imperfect. And what I like about it was it's because of how angsty Robert Pattinson is, to the point where it's a little bit emo-y, and that's one of the criticisms some people have, where he's a little emo. But I'm also, you know, kind of thinking like, okay, putting yourself in the shoes of this guy, because the biggest criticisms I hear about the movie is people don't like the suit. Well, that's a subjective thing. You're obviously entitled to your opinion. But like they have issues with his portrayal of Bruce Wayne. So a couple things that I think people aren't really getting. This isn't the same Bruce Wayne we've seen in every other movie so far, because he doesn't have a public persona. That's why it was such a big deal that he showed up to the funeral, because he's a recluse. So we don't see billionaire playboy philanthropist Bruce Wayne. So obviously he's not going to be that. Well, we don't see a lot of him. Again, that's the point. He doesn't want to be Bruce Wayne. Batman is who he is. That's why the little fake out where we don't really know if Riddler knows who he is. That's why he says, I know the real you, and the real him is Batman. It's not Bruce Wayne. So the whole emo thing, like, okay, this guy witnessed his parents being killed right in front of him at a very young age and spent his entire life at that point just trying to come up with a plan to have vengeance over that, to avenge their death, you're going to be a little dark. You're going to be a little emo when that becomes your obsession. He's obsessed.
This is obviously a very psychologically damaged individual who is basically looking to find some sort of place in which he can, avenge his parents' murder. Like, it's a hard job because Reeves essentially has come into this and been given the job of not just making a movie, but then potentially making 3. And I always think that the hard thing to do is when you're told that you're going to be doing 3 of these and you want to tell a story that's going to be set over quite a distance of time, you've got to have the element of progression. And so, yeah, you've got to start the first one with the shittest that you possibly can. Because if you set the bar there, it's going to be very hard to go above that bar. Whereas by setting the bar at, this is a Batman that gets fucked up. This is a Batman that has basically just a souped up car. This is a Batman who stitched his own cowl. This is a Batman who, is making lots of mistakes. This is a Batman who hasn't figured out who he is yet. This is a Batman who almost bursts out fucking crying when it looks like Riddler has worked out who he is, because he thinks, this is my second year and the game's nearly fucking over.
Right.
Like, yeah, you've got and each person, like even Robert Pattinson says that he's thought out the character progression. He's thought out who it's going to be. This Batman was all about, as you say, this recluse that is hiding away. And even at the beginning of the film, you've got Alfred saying, look, you need to spend more time on the company. Like, you're going to ruin your parents' legacy. And he's like, or your family's legacy. This is my family's legacy. It's clear to me that by the end of the film, he realizes that there's more than one way to instigate change in the city that he's in. And so this moves us perfectly on to what I was hoping we were going to talk about next, which is what we're going to see in the next film or films, which in my opinion is going to be a Bruce Wayne. I think the second film's going to start off with him basically saying, right, I want to start focusing more on Wayne Enterprises. Maybe he's going to get in touch with the R&D department. Maybe he meets Lucius. Maybe it doesn't take him too long to realize that actually Wayne Enterprises can not only help the city using the funding that it can possibly gain on one side, but on the other side can also actually help his progression with the tech that Batman actually has. And his character becomes much more of a duality. He chills out on the whole emo-y thing. He's sort of slightly more confident. He knows his place in the world. He's still getting there. But you can see that progression. You can see the progression arc ahead of him.
Right.
What I noticed was from the first film, and a lot of people, like with the Justice League, comparing it to the Avengers and the Marvel and all that. And what I've always said Marvel does really well is it concentrates more on the human aspect of the hero than the hero part. So it makes you relate with them more. And what DC tend to fail at, in my opinion, is they concentrate on Superman rather than Clark Kent. But Clark Kent's the one we relate to, and Superman's the one we look up to. And when you're just concentrating on Superman, everyone's like, I'm not interested. I can't be that guy.
Mm-hmm.
What they did was they just leaned straight into that with this movie and went, yeah, we're not even going to look at Bruce Wayne. This is a Batman movie. Right. And I actually enjoyed that. But I actually thought this is better.
But I think they've learned a few. I think they learned a few tricks with the Joker, because I think for a long time people have accused DC of just being dark, and DC have just been like, yeah, do you know what? Like, you can accuse us of being dark, and you can compare us to Marvel and say we're so much darker than Marvel. But fuck you, we're going to double down on that, and we're going to start to come up with characters that have a psychological profile. Right. Like the Joker had a psychological profile. This Robert Pattinson's Batman has a psychological profile. I can't say that for Robert Downey Jr. other than basically, yeah, okay, so there's a few times where he has a few daddy issues, but it's not really in depth. You don't really think to yourself, I feel the pain that this guy's going through. Like, I understand the multiple different layers of conflicting thoughts that he must be going through being this person. And Robert Downey Jr. is Tony Stark, and then his alter ego is Iron Man. That's who he is on the weekends when he gets into the suit.
That's what I was about to say. Yeah,
Batman is Batman. That's who he is. He pretends to be Bruce Wayne in public, which he doesn't like doing. He doesn't like being his alter ego. Whereas Iron Man, whereas Iron Man loves being his alter ego.
Yeah, well, and same thing with Superman, because Clark Kent is a facade. That's not even his name. It's an act that he puts on. So it's not even that he relates to us. And I think that's why people didn't understand Man of Steel. Is like, oh, he's just dark and emo. I'm like, well, how would you feel if you were an alien with godlike abilities and the world around you was made of paper, and you're trying to not look like a freak, and you want to love, you want to have friends, you want to have a life, but again, with these godlike abilities you have, and then you have to balance that with, well, kind of Spider-Man, the whole with great power comes great responsibility thing. That would be a depressing aspect of it, but that's Superman. Same thing with Batman. I think that's the biggest difference between some Marvel and DC characters, really just with, really, you look at the Trinity, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, that is their default character. Diana Prince is a caricature that she made up in order to assimilate into culture. Whereas Spider-Man was powers that were given to him not by his own will. Iron Man, what became Iron Man out of necessity. Hulk was because of an accident. It wasn't something that they, at one point in their life, they were just going to continue on being normal people. You can argue about destiny and all that stuff, but they didn't set out to, I want to become Spider-Man, I want to become the Hulk. It was just creatures of circumstance, and Marvel almost treats the alter egos as a burden as opposed to treating it as a gift. But treating the whole thing as it being a gift rather than a curse is where Marvel tends to shine as opposed to DC. But again, you can't really apply that same filter to DC because how they portray the whole alter ego thing, ironically, but how they portray that whole thing is very different.
That's really interesting, because I never clicked onto that before. That the Marvel sort of characters, that alter ego is the superhero part, where the DC, their alter ego is the human part, the part they're trying to fit into. And that's interesting.
Yeah.
I'll look at it all in a different light now.
So now you're going to throw away all your Iron Man gear and come over to the right side.
I was going to say I'm going to throw away all my Batman gear. I don't know.
What? So, Phil, where do you see the sequels going? I know Tom kind of mentioned that, but
I spotted something in the film, and I leaned over to Tom, and I was like, that suggests to me that the next bad guy is who that's going to be. I don't want to say too much. I feel like I might spoil it.
No, say it.
We're going to spoil it. Trust me. It's all right.
I don't know whether he must have mentioned it to you, because you've obviously mentioned it back at some point. But when he uses that adrenaline shot, it's green. And that to me is like the Bane juice,
Venom, yeah.
The venom. So I'm obviously thinking somehow that's something he's made, but someone else is going to get hold of, and Bane's going to be the next character he's going to have to come up against. And I think they will tease the Joker in every one, but I think at the end of the next film, you'll probably find that Bane gets locked up, then you've got the Joker in the middle, and you've got the Riddler on the outside.
Yeah.
And then the end credit scene will be them escaping.
So
and then you've got the trouble of all three.
That's a really interesting thought, isn't it? Because when Nolan did his, essentially, he knew he was going to do a trilogy. Did he know he was going to do a trilogy? I think so. And then basically, he bust out the Joker second, and the Joker is a bit of a finishing move, really, isn't it? Because of all the rogues, he is like the one. That's what I'd be doing if I was Matt Reeves. Is I would be slowly but surely, as Phil said, teasing this Joker and saying, he's out there and he's basically waiting for the right time to press the button. And right now, there aren't enough rogues in Gotham, and the dominoes aren't set up in the right way yet to knock them down. And by the end of the second movie, it's like, right, it's go time. He's going to have an Arkham Asylum that is going to be basically filled with Riddler, Bane, maybe Penguin, maybe you've got, who fucking knows who else it's going to be. But that'd be amazing if literally in the third movie, it's him breaking them all out. And that's it, is Batman's basically got this sort of...
Yeah, I want them to treat Joker like Thanos, because, they teased Thanos for several movies. In after credit scenes, you didn't really even get to see him or hear him up until, pretty much right up until Infinity War. And that's really how Joker should be, because Thanos was the biggest bad guy. Joker should be the biggest bad guy. So there, in my opinion, because that's really what I wanted to get to, was talking about the Joker. Because I think there's a couple of ways to handle him. You could go that route, and so like what you're saying is kind of do like the Arkham Asylum, Serious House on Serious Earth type idea, where like the third or fourth movie takes place almost completely in Arkham Asylum, or even it's just all the people that he is locked up now come to, they come to cash the check. So that would be kind of an interesting one.
Is there something I've missed out where I've seen there's a spin-off? There's obviously a spin-off on the Penguin, but there's a spin-off on the Arkham Asylum as well.
There is one for GCPD. I don't think there's going to be one for Arkham.
Do you know what? I've heard the same thing as Phil. I've seen a few posts. Maybe it's the same as the Penguin one, but I've heard that there's going to be that there is an Arkham spin-off in the.
Interesting. That'd be nice to see.
Do you know what? Will you quickly Google it, and me and Phil will carry on talking for a minute.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, like you were saying, man. Like I think having that joke in the end. The problem with focusing it all around Arkham Asylum is that the threat isn't great enough. What was sort of good about the Nolan trilogy is that literally, Bane had blown up the bridges, everyone was stranded in Gotham, and the entire city was about to get nuked. Like, that is a fucking threat. Like, the stakes are very, 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 very high. Basing something just in Arkham Asylum, unless you've got like a greater threat that needs to be handled in Arkham Asylum, but the threat is citywide or globally, I can't really see it being as high as the stakes are. I mean, look, the Riddler basically flooded the entire of Gotham. So if you finishing the trilogy on the worry that essentially, Arkham Asylum might be overrun by the Joker, it's not high enough stakes, in my opinion.
So the first few articles kind of popped up. They're talking about the GCPD show. We'll mainly focus on Arkham. Okay. So there's a couple different ways I would like to see Joker be introduced. Either kind of flip the script a little bit and make him not be the biggest villain at first, like deceptively, like he's just like everyone else. Like, yeah, he'll kill a few people, but he's not like we're gonna nuke the entire world or something like that. Like, nothing world ending. Just show a few mundane Joker adventures just to kind of bury the lead that he is the big bad, because everyone's expecting there's gonna be a lot of tension there, because like, oh god, what is he actually planning? And then kind of show, like, I would love to see them, and Matt Reeves and Pattinson have talked about potentially introducing a Robin into this series.
That was going to be my next question for you, man. Like, what do you think the chances are?
I think it's very high, and if they go the route that I'm talking about, where Joker is not necessarily like the biggest villain, he thinks he is, but he gets jealous of Robin. and in some continuities, that's one of the reasons why he kills Jason, is because he doesn't like the idea of Batman having a family. He's like all the annoying fans. He's like, well, Batman should be a lone Avenger just like he's always been, except the fact that Robin was invented in 1940. Batman was invented a year before, so no, he hasn't always been a lone Avenger. For 99% of his existence, he has had a Bat family of some form, so he's really only a lone Avenger in the movies.
We haven't seen Robin for a very, very, very long time,
since '97,
and it's a little bit like sort of Aquaman is. You're gonna have to have someone who's very good, who's very dark, who's a very good actor. You're gonna have to do it in a very careful way so that Robin doesn't come across as a kid in tights. Do you know what I mean? Or just an absolute joke.
Be honest. Do you think Taylor Lautner could get himself back into shape again and just be the Robin?
Actually,
Yes.
Derek, I'm going to show my ignorance a little bit here. You know, in the beginning of the Batman, where the Riddler is spying through binoculars on the kid who's like blah 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 blah. What's that a reference to?
I don't really think it's so much a reference.
Because I didn't recognize it, right, but I was wondering if there's something that I've missed in some sort of comic or graphic novel somewhere that's basically that. Because if you had a Robin outfit that looked akin to that, where he's got, a really cool looking hood and he's got like his gear on, that might work.
Yeah. So there were two people in the Batman that if they were to tease a potential Robin, I could see them going this route. One of them would be Coulson's son, not Coulson, whoever the mayor is, his son.
The mayor's son, yeah.
He's not important. He dies literally 5 minutes into the movie. But so the mayor's son. Another one would be the guy that's in that Joker gang with half his face painted.
Oh yeah,
he's in the Titans. And he's in the Titans. He's trying to be the next Robin.
Right. Yeah, he's Tim Drake in Titans.
That's it.
So they may not want him to be. So here's my thing about Robin, and I'm not trying to necessarily disagree with your theology there, but I think the problem people have with Robin is they don't really know anything about Robin. They know Robin from the movies, and they know Burt Ward. Because every time someone says like, well, you can't have Robin in a realistic movie because he's going to be looked at as silly, or he has to be like overly angsty or emo. Well, they've been doing Robin where he's not angsty and emo in some very dark comics for 70 years now. Or at least you could say in the last 30 years, Robin has had a very serious role in the Batman mythos without having to be overly angsty and dark. So I don't necessarily think they have to go that route. But everyone, when they think Robin, they go with, oh, holy gee, Willikers Batman, or they go to Chris O'Donnell.
I mean, sort of more the look. I mean, yeah, personality-wise, of course, but I mean more the look of him as well. Do you know what I mean? Like,
right, kind of like
Batman,
what they did with Titans.
Batman obviously does what he does and wears the colors that he wears to hide in the shadows. Don't know, like, is that going to work so well? Like, you've got to have some really sort of blackwashed out, yeah, like the Titan stuff, like, or like, I mean, the Robin suit that was sort of shown briefly in BVS DOJ is all right, but don't know. Does it work as well? Is it as threatening?
It's not meant to be threatening, though.
Could they twist it slightly and have it more that you've got the green, you've got the black, and you've got the red? Could they twist it so it's more of a camo sort of look?
Well, again, Robin is not meant to be dark and intimidating. Robin, I mean, it is a joke in the comics, but Robin is meant to draw fire. He's meant to distract from Batman, because with the bright colors, and also he's less armored. So, like in Titans, when they completely ruined the Nightwing suit by putting him in a military tactical Iron Man suit, like that's not something you put an acrobat in. He's supposed to move more, get hit less. And then Batman's the one that comes in. Because if you notice, like especially early on in Batman's career, early in Robin's career, rather, Robin was almost always discouraged from fighting. It was always a thing where, like, look, you're there to cause a distraction, or there to, if they're trying to rescue someone who's kidnapped, like, that's what I need you to do. He shows Robin how to defend himself in a fight, but it really, Batman and Robin going in, balls to the walls, actually fighting crime, doesn't usually happen until later on in their career with an older Robin. And that is when you get, like, the more, like, Tim Drake style, where it is a little bit more protection, a little bit more tactical. But, like, even if you wanted to go like Titans, just don't do it like Titans, because Titans sucks. In my opinion, I don't like Titans. But, like, even like with the route they go with Titans, he's still in a red and green, suit. That's still the classic color scheme, but I don't think anyone is going to be saying, he looks ridiculous in that suit and living to tell about it. Because he's still, like, even seeing that suit, which is basically the Tim Drake Robin suit from the New 52 that they kind of ripped off for Titans, like, still looks badass in it. And they didn't have to do the whole thing with the hood. Now, I do kind of like the hood idea as well. From Arkham City, they did that. But, like, I'd be fine with doing darker colors, but don't do the thing that everyone does. Like, and look, Robin cosplayers, I'm not trying to hate on you, but every time someone wants to make a realistic Robin, they just don't do Robin. They just do, kind of like what you were saying, is you can do a darker red and green, but Robin is red and green. So sorry if that embarrasses you.
I'm looking forward to seeing what Robin's gonna look. I mean, we've already seen him, but I'm looking forward to the new Arkham game coming out. What's it called?
Well, it's not Arkham, but Gotham Knights.
Thank you, Gotham Knights. I mean, yeah, like, it's obviously the same sort of university thing, but yeah, I quite like his outfit in that, but I just think it needs to be maybe a little bit more. But I don't know. Again, we're talking about like, at least I'm talking about, I'd like to see things more grungy, and I'm talking about whether it'd work in the sort of universe that Matt Reeves has created. But by the time the second one comes along, it's going to be a different type of universe. Batman's probably not going to be based on Kurt Cobain anymore. He's probably going to choose someone else. Maybe we'll, that's the other thing as well, is even the Batman theme tune this time round was based on, what's the title of the fucking tune, man?
Something in the Way.
Something in the Way, yeah. So you think, oh, well, what is that going to be an ongoing theme? Is the next one going to be?
It's going to be Smells Like Teen Spirit, obviously.
Smells like Teen Spirit. You think
that's where Robin comes in, because he smells like Teen Spirit.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah.
I see you, Matt Reeves. I see you.
Yeah. It's not. Do you know what, Derek? Crazier things has happened. It's not a bad shout. It's not a bad shout at all.
Right. So I know we were going to try to keep this under an hour for Phil's sake, but I do appreciate you holding it for this long, because I know you've got that pea-sized bladder. But anyway, so do we have any closing thoughts on the Batman and what we would like to see in the near future, what we can expect to see in the near future from AE, just y'all's closing arguments?
Right. Well, I mean, do you know what? There was something I did want to talk about on this show, and I'll say it very, very, very briefly. Yeah. I'll try and get through it very, very briefly. I really wanted to talk about the Batman no-kill rule.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I when I can, I help admin Batman addicts. I see this all the time, which is the whole people complaining about Batman doesn't kill, Batman doesn't kill. And they say it as like this sort of blanket statement. And what sort of grinds my gears a little bit about that is the idea of making blanket statements in the first place. It's like, if you have killed even just once, like, you kill, that's it. It's the problem with Batman is that people like to ignore some Batman and say that's not my Batman, and focus on other Batman and say that's my Batman. And so everything that happens, everything that Batman does is wrong and doesn't count, and everything that Batman does is right and counts. But in the end of the day, it all counts. If it's been officially published, if it's been officially put out there as a version of Batman, then it counts. So you can't ever use the blanket statement of, if Batman has killed once ever in any medium, Batman kills. If Batman was to rape in any medium, Batman is a rapist. Like, that's just how it goes. I mean, luckily he's not. But you can say my
I can
favorite.
already hear Aaron saying, "Yeah, but you get one free rape, don't you?"
I
was just thinking that.
Like, so that's my whole thing. Is you can say my favorite version of Batman is a Batman that doesn't kill, and you can even say also the whole idea that Batman doesn't kill is just, it's a ridiculous premise, right? Because in any Batman, you see him like walking around, you see him punching people, throwing them off balconies, scaffolding, rooftops, and you just think to yourself, well, hold on a second. Someone the other day said to me, "Oh yeah, what's so great about the Batman, Robert Pattinson's Batman, Matt Reeves' Batman is, yeah, we're back to a Batman that doesn't kill." And I'm like, I am pretty sure that Batman didn't, when you punch someone in the head, there are so many stories out there of people just dying from a punch in the head. Or when that Batman is like going psycho at the end and punching that guy's nose in, that Batman doesn't give a fuck about not killing. When Batman threw a lot of those Riddler copiers off of that scaffolding, Batman wasn't like, "Oh, I'm only going to throw them off if they're hooked up to that gantry."
Right.
He didn't give a fuck. Batman tried to kill them, and it was lucky for him that he didn't.
Well,
but
even one of those guys, he shot a grappling. Well, one of those guys, he shot a grappling hook through his thigh.
One of those guys tried to shoot him. He grabbed the barrel of the guy's gun, pointed it at another guy, so that when the trigger was pulled, it shot the other guy. Don't fucking tell me Batman doesn't kill. Like, it's just a fabrication. It's a child's tale that you're convincing yourself.
I think the argument that people are going to make, and I'll play devil's advocate here, on that, is Batman does not commit first-degree murder.
Semantics, right?
Semantics, okay. Yes. It's absolute. We're comic book geeks. Everything is semantics. But like when I say that, like, yes, it's unrealistic to think that Batman with Kevlar enforced hard knuckle gloves, like, you can punch someone with your bare knuckles and kill them. It's not that hard. I've done it. I'm kidding. But doing it with like reinforced Kevlar gloves with the force that he is doing that at, it's unrealistic to think that no one has ever died as a result of fighting Batman. Even like with the car chase that happens when he flips Penguin's car multiple times, did he make sure that he was wearing a helmet or buckled before he did that? Like, obviously, it goes back to, I make fun of it because I feel like where Christopher Nolan screwed this up is he acknowledged it. He should have just let it be. But the whole "I won't kill you, I just won't save you" thing is just stupid. That was some of the most lazy writing ever. Just get out of there, because now what's happened is you drew attention to it, because I think if it was a situation where Batman would have just glided out of the train car and then, whatever, and let Ra's fall to his death, which, by the way, that's how you say it. It's Ra's al Ghul, not Raz.
It's the classic philosophical case of, you've got a train heading down the tracks and it's going to run over 5 people, but you can flick the switch and it'll only run over 1 person. Mm-hmm. So what do you do? And it's almost that idea of, are you responsible for your own inaction? And in my point of view, yeah, absolutely. Like, if the option is in front of you and you have the option. So I guess the real question is it's first degree murder if it's premeditated.
Right.
But then you're onto a whole ballpark of, well, what's Batman's intent? And that's really sort of inarguable. And even in real life, that's inarguable. That's why we have judges and juries to sort of decide whether they think it's. And I'll tell you what, like, absolutely, with the Ra's al Ghul, like 100%, it was premeditated murder.
Well, I think
because
I think where the argument comes in, and I would agree with you that, like, at what point do you consider it premeditated? Like, if I intentionally grab the barrel of the gun, knowing that you're about to pull that trigger and point it towards someone else, is that premeditated? Depending on who your jury is or who's reading the comic book or watching the movie, they may feel like no. But if it were a situation where he's like, you know what, I've had enough of Joker. He shot Barbara and paralyzed her. He killed Jason. He did all these horrible things. I'm going to go to Arkham and I'm just going to kill him. Like, Batman would never do something like that. But even in Batman versus Superman, which was funny was he was the most infamous Batman for killing, even though Michael Keaton, our Lord and Savior, stuffed a bomb in a clown's pants. And people are like, well, whatever, silent at that point. But Batfleck kills too many people, right? The only person in the movie that he intentionally premeditated and thought about killing was Superman, okay? And even then, like, the whole Martha thing that people don't understand, I don't even think Martha was really a thing that held him up. I think that entire fight was him hyping himself up to do it, because if you look at all the people that Batman has killed in that movie, and he does kill in that, I'm not arguing that at all, it's always in a kind of backhand. Well, it's like that infamous Zack Snyder thing that he said, where we kind of did it in kind of an offhanded, unintentional kind of way. Like, yeah, that's how Batman kills people. Like, yeah, I'll throw a batarang at your eye, and if it happens to implant into your brain and kill you, tough titty, but fine.
You know, there's probably a lot of murders that happen that got taken a bit too far, like unintentionally too far. Like, Batman doesn't get a free pass.
Exactly. I'm agreeing with you there. I think where, again, that distinction comes in, the thing that people don't keep in mind is Batman is crazy. He is not the most sane or rational person in the world. So his obsession and how he rationalizes it in his head is the ends justify the means. You know, as long as it's getting results. And I still have this, and there's a great video that I need to link where someone explains the no killing rule of Batman, and the blatant hypocrisy in it that isn't really, like, it. I don't even think it's necessarily trying to be hidden. I think we're not meant to think that Batman should never kill. We're meant to believe that Batman thinks he should never kill, and that thinks he doesn't kill.
I think the problem that we have is that if you're in the middle of a fight and you're sort of punching people up, and you've got to turn to the person that you work with and say, no, we don't kill, that's very easy. But turning to them and saying, no, we don't commit first-degree premeditated murder, just takes a little bit too long to
right.
And then they're going to stop and be like, well, hold on a second, let's have a talk about this. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And I was fine with the whole no guns thing. I am sick of Batman with guns on the Batmobile. I'm tired of that. But
he brings knives, which are batarangs, and he throws them at people. It's not like he's blunt the edges of those, going, I just want these to softly hurt someone.
A little bit of pedantics here, okay? So technically the batarangs are not knives, they're shurikens, or throwing stars, which are not, are not intended for murder. You can kill someone with them, but it's not the same as throwing a knife at someone. Most of the time they're meant to be thrown as a distraction or as a disarming agent. So a little bit of pedantics there. But yes, if you throw a batarang at someone's jugular, you will most likely kill them.
Not even just the jugular, like, your body's filled with, like, major arteries that even if you just nick one, you've got them in your legs, you've got them in your arms, like, you nick yourself or nick an artery in the wrong place and you're going to fucking bleed to death. Like,
right.
I really don't think he gives a fuck.
Unless every time he throws one of those at someone, he's got that whole utility belt, which is basically a first aid box.
Yeah, first aid.
He sort of comes over and then straps them up.
Right.
And puts a plaster on it.
You know those little Batman plasters that you can buy in, like, CVS, like the he's just got loads of those, and he just afterwards he goes around, like, putting them on, little kiss, moves him.
No, you've got it all wrong. That's what the brander is for. He cauterizes
Yeah,
it.
fucking
And
sealing it
also,
up, yeah.
further pedantics, Robert Pattinson does not have batarangs. So therefore, he does not kill.
We were interested in, obviously he's got the whatever they are
The
on his
fins.
arm, on his gauntlet, and we were like, he's not the fin, the metal rods.
Oh, the grappling gun.
Yeah, they're grappling.
The darts.
Are those his hooks, are they? Did I miss that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They come out at the end. They splay out and they have gone. See, that's how fucking little we've looked into this. The fact that me and Phil haven't even had a discussion about doing that. That'd be something really cool, actually. Like, I really like the fact that now the sort of designs have come out for his gauntlet that has the little thing that ching comes up.
It makes a lot of sense because it's very unrealistic to think that. Well, I don't know. I have a grappling gun. I don't have it here, but like it's basically the size of a handgun, and it's unrealistic to think that you can fire that, hit something, and then support your entire body weight.
What I want to see is just a Batman where he fucking shoots the grappling gun, it hooks onto something, he presses the button, and the fucking gun just goes zoop out of his fucking hand.
Yeah, or realistically, like, how are you going to hold on to that? Because you can't, like, do this. You can't, like, I don't understand it. Like, the Nolan movies at least made it somewhat make sense. Like, no, we've got a motor that's just in his little belt buckle that's that thick because we're realistic. But
in Keaton, he fucking latches it onto his belt, doesn't he? And then zoop, 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 zoop.
And see, I'm fine with how Pattinson did it because it's almost like a web shooter at that point, which I thought was kind of cool. But it's a lot more tactical. I mean, he used it to shoot several people in the leg, but those people didn't die. So again, Batman does not kill.
He missed all the arteries. He's a really good fucking shot with it. He's like a surgeon with that.
I mean, his dad was a doctor, so I mean, maybe that's genetic.
Yeah. Batman took the hypocritical oath.
Hypocritical. Absolutely. So I'll say this about the whole Batman no kill rule. Because I've been reading these books for a while and everything, it's always like, okay, Batman, we'll let you believe that. We'll let you think that these people are. It's like that Pete Holmes sketch where he threw the battering in the dude's eye and he's like over there dead.
Yeah.
He's fine. Poor guy's just all tuckered out. Like the whole no kill rule that Batman has is one that only he believes in. And he's the only one that's falling for it because again, Batman's crazy. He's not all right in the head. You could say it's just because he's a hypocrite. Maybe it is that, but it's really the way he has justified it in his head because he doesn't use a gun, or at least he shouldn't use a gun. I get the whole no guns thing because of how Thomas and Martha were killed. I'm fine with that, but like I think he tells himself that to feel better about what he's doing because again, we're not talking about a superhero here. We're talking about a vigilante. We're talking about a criminal who consistently breaks the law. And I think the way he justifies it in his head is morally what separates him from the people he fights is he doesn't hide behind a gun. And again, it goes back to the old saying, criminals are a superstitious and cowardly lot. I think that he's fine if someone dies as a result of his actions because it was with his bare hands and it's almost like it was meant to be. Whereas if you intentionally shoot someone, like you're going for the kill. I don't think he ever goes for the kill. I think it's one of those things, if it happens, it happens, but I'm not really going to go for it. I'm definitely not going to avoid it, but again, we're talking about someone who doesn't process things like a normal human being.
Exactly. And you're absolutely right, man. Like it wouldn't stand up in court.
No.
But luckily he's a vigilante. He doesn't really have to worry about court. So,
right.
It is what it is. And it doesn't make me love Batman. Batman being a killer or being crazy, it doesn't make me like Batman any less whatsoever. It just makes me dislike the people that are dead set on this whole idea that he does or he doesn't. And it's just like, well, he does if you're going to use a blanket rule, but there are versions of him that don't. And if that's your favorite version, absolutely fine. Just don't argue the toss with people that he doesn't.
Right. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's like you and I've talked about multiple times. We are talking about a fictional character, so
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think I think the answer here is he do he doesn't kill if we're talking about Lego Batman.
I
Or-
love Lego Batman.
or
Honest.
Adam West or George Clooney. They are the only two movies, two Batmen on screen that have never, even being very pedantic, have not killed anyone. Only George Clooney and Adam West. So there you go. How about this? We'll go with this. Batman kills, but he doesn't murder anyone. How about that? Are we okay with that?
Yeah, I'll.
Manslaughter is not the same as murder.
Yeah, I guess.
He's not going out strapped, or he's not going out with anything that's intentionally made
You're such a thug,
to
Phil.
murder someone.
Yeah, he might attempted murder, but he doesn't ever get round to it.
Yeah.
So okay, there we go. The definitive answer: does Batman kill? Yes, but does he murder?
Does he murder?
No.
he
Have
gives
you
it
learned that one off
he gives
top?
it a good go.
If you live in a very conservative state that, like, you know, like, well, whatever, he's fine, you know.
What, like you do?
No, we don't live in that conservative of a state. Like, most of the time, we pretty much jump at the chance to put someone on death row. As it damn well should be. Anyway, yeah, it was that Ron White joke where he's talking about in Texas. They were saying, like, if you had a kill count that involved children or involved more than 4 people, you got bumped to the front of the line. He's like, every other state's trying to abolish the death penalty. We're trying to put in an express lane. Again, how it damn well should be. But anyway, so, man, we're getting all sorts of stances on this show, but yeah, it's all right. You know, whatever.
Do you know what? I really enjoyed this BatChat.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
It's the best BatChat you've ever watched. I know that.
It's the best BatChat I've ever watched. No, that's not fair. Like I watch a lot of them, man. I know Phil always watches them or listens to them in his car on the way to work and back every Monday.
Yeah.
And what I do is, because I'm working on a Saturday night, like when I come into here on a Saturday night, BatChat would have just sort of finished or been over for a couple of hours. So I'll sort of like put it on in the background as I'm like making stuff, and I just don't get to ever really. I'm not ever there at the right time to listen to it live and sort of get involved like I'd used to. I'd want to. So this was nice.
It's been nice. It's nice having both of you on here. And I really appreciate you guys letting me pre-record this. I mean, I know it worked out better for you guys this way, but it definitely worked out great for me this week. And yeah, this has been a great episode. We covered a lot of different topics. Tom and Phil, I will have Alter Ego. Do you want me to tag your individual pages or just Alter Ego in the description?
Just Alter Ego. I don't want these plebs trying to.
I would not recommend it.
I've got enough friends. Do you know what I mean? I just don't. Just keep your distance. Form a queue.
Did you see that Freudian slip from Tom then when he said, "I've got enough friends"?
I did.
I don't have time for friends. I'm too busy making stuff for people.
If I cared enough to go back and edit this after the fact, which I'm not going to do, I'm just going to upload this raw because I think we got a lot of funny stuff in here. Is like when he's saying I've got enough friends and sitting there shaking his head, I'm gonna like zoom in on him and play like the sad Hulk music.
Yeah, just one lone tear just rolling down my cheek.
Or better yet, I'll just have like the music fading and hear something in the way. That way it's at least topical. Alrighty. Well, Tom, Phil, I will have Alter Ego on Instagram, and I'll go ahead and link your website as well. If you are looking for any kind of cool Batman or other character cosplay-related items, definitely go check them out. They've got really great gauntlets, belts, cowl stands, and cowl stand covers. Really, really cool stuff. And definitely looking forward to seeing more of these guys and what they have in store. Tom's just throwing a temper tantrum, so we got to hurry up and get on out of here. Again, you guys can catch BatChat live almost every Saturday, 2 p.m. Central. You can always watch it after the fact here on YouTube, and if you want to listen to it in podcast form, like Phil apparently does, you can listen to it on Apple iTunes Podcast or on Spotify. Or if you're an absolute legend, you can just actually set your phone in the dash and watch it while you're driving down the road. That's how I personally do it. So however you want to do it works for you. But thank you guys so much for watching. You guys have a blessed day. We'll see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Y'all have a good week.